Namaskaraha and welcome to our next session on the yogic life. So, human beings have evolved from animals, and in the Srishti Chakra we know that everything has evolved from Paramapurusha. So, the only samagri that was used in making this creation is Paramatma. So, whatever capabilities that Paramatma has, those capabilities, every human being has those capabilities in them. So nothing in this universe is inferior. Even a blade of grass is not, a low lying creature, right? Everything, nothing is adham, right? Everything, nothing is dhin, nothing is low. But the thing is that the human beings, whatever potential we have, the samarthyam that we have, we don't use most of the samarthyam. So in human beings we don't use 90% of our potentialities. So whatever potentialities that Paramatma has, we also have those potentialities, but human beings don't use those potentialities. 90% of human potentiality remains unused, right? Only 10%, and of the remaining 10%, 8% we misuse, right? We misuse our potentiality, and only 2% we actually use. So even those people who are really very hardworking, who are very famous, right, who excel in their fields, even those people only use 2% of their potentiality, not more than that, right? With the 2% of the potentiality, they're able to achieve so much, right? So what we have to do as human beings is we have to use 10% of our potentiality. We have to make a proper use of all our potentialities. We should not keep anything unused, right? So we have to use the 100% of our potentiality. If by just using 2% of potentiality we are able to accomplish so much, if we can use 100% of our potentiality, just imagine what we can do, right? So we have to make a conscious effort to improve on that. There are like so many things we say that we cannot do. We just write off saying I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. But essentially, like particularly in the Yoganishta Jivanam, when we enter, everything that we say, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, and for everything we say we have an excuse. We say I cannot do this for this and this and this reason. Then we say something, oh, I cannot do this for this and this and this and this reason. So for everything that we learn in this Yoganishta Jivanam, right, so many things we learn, like asanas, we learn about food, we learn, right, Nirjala Upvasa, everything we learn. So for everything we have an excuse. So Nirjala Upvasa, so if somebody says Nirjala Upvasa, then say, no, I cannot do Nirjala Upvasa. Oh, I will take little bit water and then I will do Upvasa. Right? So for everything we want to not follow the rules. We don't want to use our potentiality. We can do 100% Upvasa, but we don't. Right? We give excuse. We say, no, I get headache or something or other. We give excuse. So in essence, what it means is that we have not utilized our full potentiality, right? So we have that Shakti within us, we have the Samarthya within us to attain that infinite, right? To become that infinite, we have it, but we don't utilize. We only utilize 2% of the potentiality. Remaining 98% is actually unutilized, and some of it is actually misutilized, right? So what we have to do is, it's important to understand what has been taught and apply it fully in your life, and not say that, not give excuses saying I cannot do this, I cannot do this, I cannot do this, I cannot do this. That means you're thinking that you don't have the samarthyam to do it for whatever reason, right? But it is not like that. Paramatma has given that samarthya to everybody. Every individual in this universe has that samarthya to do this. Nobody has been born with defects. We can achieve, we can use our potentiality. So it is only a matter of making that effort, making that chesta, right? So when we look at the, the journey of human beings, right? When we look at the journey of human beings, right? So we have evolved from the Kshiti Tattva, right? In the initial stages, we were all the Kshiti Tattva. We were stone. We were stones. We were Jada. We are Jada Vastu. Then, due to the impact of the Tamoguna, then slowly the Jivas emerged, and slowly the unit mind also emerged, and there was continuous progress, development in the mind, right? Due to struggle, due to clash and cohesion, right? Because of the sangharsh, that Jada Vastu, because of the constant struggle, because of the impact of the gunas and constant struggle, that Jada Vastu, from that Jada Vastu, the mind evolved. So essentially, the mind is a creation of matter, and matter is a creation of cosmic mind, right? So from Paramapurusha's cosmic mind, right, the matter emerged, and in the matter, due to continuous struggle, right, the mind emerged. So mind is a creation of matter. So where did the matter come? The matter is a crudified form of the cosmic mind. So the matter came from the mind. So from Paramatma's mind, right, the matter emerged. So essentially, the matter and the mind, they are fundamentally, they're one. They're basically the same, right? So we know that the mind is made up of the food that we eat, right? The type of the food that we eat, according to that, our gross body, our physical body is made of, right? So the food that we eat, that makes the physical body, and from that physical body, the manas dhatu, that is the mind, is made up of the food that we eat. So it is very important, the food that we eat, the vyavahara, how we operate in the society, we need to have a proper niyantran, we need to have a proper control, right? The control on the food and the control on the behavior. So if we just eat whatever we get, then that is not right. It has an impact on the physical body, it has an impact on the mind, because your physical body is made of the food that you eat, and the cells in that physical body, and from that cells the mind is made. Even though the mind is very, very sukshma, it is very, very subtle vastu, but the mind is actually made from matter, right? So if we operate according to our instincts, right, just according to the instincts, without analyzing, without doing vichar, without doing swatantra vichar, right? So then we can say that the mind that we have is an animal mind, is a pashuman, right? Because we're just operating according to our instincts, we are not analyzing, we are not using our viveka, right? So in a human body, if the mind is a pashuman, because it's operating according to the instincts, then that mind is not, now becomes unfit to live in the human body, because the human body is capable of a mind, the human mind. But if a person operates according to his instincts, then he is having a pashu mind, an animal mind, and the mind of an animal. And with the mind of an animal, that mind is no longer capable to be located in that human body, right? So because his bhavana, his emotions, everything is, the emotions are like an animal, right? Even though it is a human mind, but it is operating like an animal mind, right? Then what happens is that when it operates according to its instincts, slowly the mind, even though it was a human mind, it has now become an animal mind. And because of his swabhava, right, the mind becomes, because of the way he operates, his mind has become into an animal mind, and that animal mind is not able to adjust in this human body any longer, right? Then what happens is that there is this that the just like in a computer, we have to put the right kind of chip for the computer to operate. So in the human body, if the mind has now deteriorated to an animal mind, then what happens is that when they get a rebirth, then that animal mind will not be able to get a human body, because there is no adjustment. There's no adjustment between the animal mind and the human body. So that is why in the next life, when they get a birth, they get the body of an animal, right? Because the animal mind and the animal body, they have a perfect adjustment, they have a perfect alignment. So if the quality of the mind is that of an animal, then it will get an animal body, right? So the way the status of the mind, according to the status of the mind, what status it is in or what stage it is in, right, it gets an appropriate body. So then when it gets in the next life, when it gets the mind of an animal, the pashuman, then what happens, it engages in the struggle again through clash and cohesion. Slowly it progresses, and its mind also becomes more and more cleansed. It becomes more and more sukshma, right? It becomes more and more subtle. Then what happens is that animal, that the mind that was there in that animal body, because of that progress, it is no longer able to adjust in that animal body, right? Because the mind is now developed, and the body is not in that developed stage. So then what happens is that kind of a mind, now it has progressed, right? It has now progressed to the stage of a human mind. That mind cannot get adjustment in the animal body, right? So then it now needs to get a human body. So then when that animal dies, right, so the next life, that animal doesn't get the animal body, it gets the human body, right? Because now the mind has evolved and developed due to the clash and cohesion, right? So then when it gets the next life, when it gets the human body, and again, if the human being doesn't utilize the mind properly, then the human being will get the animal body again, right? So according to the Pratisanchar Dhara, it will if it degrades, then it will go down in the cycle, and it will get the body of an animal or a plant or whatever, right? So if when a human being who emerged from an animal for the first time in the Srishti Chakra, right, he was a Pashu in the past, and now he has emerged as a human being, right? Then what happens is that because he has led his life in the past as an animal, so initially the mind is now very familiar with the Pashu Dharma, the instincts. So it will operate according to the instincts, the Sahajat Vritti. It will operate according to that. So the Buddhi Vichar will not happen. He will not be able to utilize the Buddhi. He will not be able to do the use his Viveka, right? Then in that human body, slowly what happens is there is a further clash, there is a struggle, there is an intellectual clash, and then there is the longing for Paramapurusha. There is a longing for Paramapurusha. So then what happens when there is a longing for Paramapurusha? With that struggle, that struggle to find that infinite, the mind again further progresses, right? In such a mind, the Viveka awakens. Viveka awakens. The person is able to do the vichara, he is able to do the analysis, and so then that such a mind now has elevated to such an extent that it is completely away from the animal mind, right? So that mind has now become an independent mind. It is able to do the vichara, it is able to do the analysis, right? So now the human body has a human mind. So initially the human body has had a mind of an animal in the initial stages. Then in that stage, that human being was having a human body, but he was animal inside, right? Then when the right, because his mind had not developed, he was operating like an animal according to the instincts, right? But when that human being starts doing sadhana, when he starts engaging in the spiritual pursuit, then what happens is that he has this longing for that Paramapurusha, longing for that infinite. Then the Viveka awakens in such a person, that prajna, that prakarshena jnanam, that it awakens in such a person, right? In that situation, that person is a human being on the outside, and he is also his mind is also is that of a human, is also that of a human, appropriate to human, right? So then such a kind of mind we called as a human mind, right, which has started to engage in sadhana. Such a mind is called as a human mind, because it started to use its vichara, it started to use the viveka, right? After that, what happens is that when that person continues in the marga of meditation, when he continues in the line of spirituality, then his viveka further gets stabilized. He no longer operates according to instincts, right? In that state, when he becomes stabilized in the sadhana, then he becomes a deva, he becomes divine. So essentially there are three stages. In the human body, the mind can be that of an animal. In the human body, the mind can be that of a human, and in the human body, the mind can be that of a deva. So in that stage, he will have the he will become a deva. When he becomes deva, he gets stabilized in that, and more when he gets stabilized in the divya bhava, when he becomes stabilized in the divya bhava, then he becomes paramatma. He will become one with paramatma. Brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati, right? One who wants to know the Brahm, one who wants to know Brahma, Brahma vetti, Brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati, he becomes Brahma. So from animal, there are three stages: from animal mind, the human mind, and from human mind he gets the mind of a deva, and when he gets stabilized in that, then he becomes paramatma, right? uh, so if a human being has a human body and a human mind, but he doesn't utilize the human mind, he doesn't utilize the potentialities, so 90% of the potentiality is unused, and of the 10% only 2% used, remaining 8% is wasted, he doesn't do sadhana, then what happens is that he degrades, right? uh, so if such a person, on the other hand, he has the human body and an animal mind, but he starts to engage in doing sadhana, then he becomes established in the in that, right? So then he becomes established, he gets the human mind, his mind is now elevated, and when he further does sadhana, then what happens, and also when he does niswartha seva, jana seva, he works for atma mokshartham and jagat hitaya, then what happens, he becomes a deva, right? And when in that deva bhava he becomes established, right, and he does complete atma samarpanam, then he himself becomes paramapurusha, right? So there is a shloka over here: sarve cha pashavah santi talavat bhutale naraha tesham jnana prakashaya veerabhavah prakashitah veerabhavam sada prapya kramena devata bhavet. Sarve pashavah santi talavat bhutale naraha. So on this earth, everybody everybody is an animal, right? Initially everybody is an animal, right, on this earth, because they're animal. Why? Because they have a human body, but they have the mind of an animal. Then tesham jnana prakashaya veerabhavah prakashitah. The second stage is when the knowledge dawns on them, and they realize that they have to attain the infinite, and they start engaging in the spiritual pursuit, then the veera bhavah prakashitah, that is, they started to engage in the struggle, that is veera bhavah. When they get the veera bhavah, that means they have the human mind, veera bhavam sada prapya kramena devata bhavet. After having gotten this veera bhava, they further progress, then systematically, step by step, they become devata. So this shloka is actually talking about the three stages: sarve cha pashavah santi talavat bhutale naraha tesham jnana prakashaya veerabhavah prakashitah veerabhavam sada prapya kramena devata bhavet, right? So even if in the initial stages of the birth, if somebody is a pashu, right? Because of the sanskaras, somebody is a pashu. Then when the mind evolves and develops, then what happens? They get the human body, and also uh, you know they get the human mind. When they get the human mind, the viveka awakens. Then it is an independent mind. That is the vira bhava. Vira bhava uh, is there. Vira bhava awakens, right? And then what happens is that when they vira bhavam sada prapya, so slowly when they get established in that stage by stage, right, when they get established in that spirituality, then stage by stage they become deva. So even though somebody feels, because of their sanskaras, they feel that I'm a papi, I'm not a sadhu, I'm a papi. But even such a person, we have seen that even in our puranas, where somebody is a thief, right, or a murderer or whatever, but when his inner eyes open and he starts engaging in spirituality, then Paramapurusha definitely forgives him. Even a papi, a durachari, even a durachari, Paramatma forgives the durachari. So there's no, it's not like it's a doomsday. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So by doing sadhana, a person becomes a deva. So nobody's fate is blocked forever, right? Nobody's fate is sealed forever. So everybody can progress further, right? We should always think this in our mind, that I want to progress further, I want to progress further, I want to progress further. So we want to go forward, right? Whatever happened in the past is past. I don't want to be crying about what happened in the past. I don't want to look at yesterday and say, oh my god, I sinned this, I did that, right? Whatever happened yesterday is fine, right? It happened. Today I want to progress forward. What happened yesterday is, you don't think about that. What will happen tomorrow, you will not think about that. Today you will become prayatnashil, you will become a cheshtaman. You start engaging, right? So what did not happen till yesterday, that can be possible today. So we should always be thinking about agragati, right? Agragati, when we think about the agragati, then progress is definite and victory is definite, right? So only in the eyes of the society, somebody is a papi, somebody is a punyavan, right? So if somebody does something terrible, then we say he's such a papi, right? And somebody is doing all good work, we say he's such a punyavan, right? So this is only from the drishti of the society, right? But from Paramapurusha's drishti, from Parabrahma's drishti, everything is the same. Whether you are a sadhu or whether you are a papi, right? That kind of distinction is not there in the vision of Paramapurusha, right? So even a person who is having the mind of an animal, or a person who is having the mind of a human being, right? In Paramapurusha's vision, everybody is the same, right? So if we do the Hari Bhajan, and if you do Paramapurusha's Upasana, then what will Paramapurusha say, right? So irrespective of whether you're you when you approach Paramapurusha, what we will say is, irrespective of whether I'm an animal or whatever, I have still emerged from you, right? I'm a santana of Paramapurusha, right? I'm an offspring of Paramapurusha. I have emerged from him. This whole Srishti is the samagri of Paramapurusha. So how can I be different, right? So in the initial stages of the sadhana, a person he will say that even though my mind has been a pashu, but you are my lord, you are my paramatma, right? He was the pashupati, right? He was a pashupati. So when the person engages in sadhana, and he further struggles and he progresses, and he has the bhakti bhava for Paramapurusha, and his bhakti bhava becomes more and more drida, right? Then what happens is that same human being engages in the struggle. His eyes have opened, now he is engaging in the spiritual pursuit. So then that person will say to Paramapurusha, hey Paramatma, I'm still your son, I'm still your santan, right? Because, and even though I started engaging in this in sadhana, I'm a santan, right? And in that case, you are my lord, and that Paramatma is Vireshwara, right? Initially he was Pashupatihi, now he is Vireshwaraha, right? From Pashupati he has become a Vireshwara, right? And then when a person does sadhana and his viveka gets established and he becomes devata, right, with Paramatma's kripa, with Paramatma's kripa vrishti, and when the person engages in the struggle and gets stabilized in it, he becomes a devata. So then what that person will say is, hey Paramapurusha, I become a devata, but I become a devata with your kripa, I am still your santan, right? In that case, that Paramatma, he is called as he is devanam devaha, he is mahadevaha. So Paramatma, he can be a Pashupatihi, he can be Pashunam Patihi, he can be Vireshwaraha, Viranam Ishwaraha, or he can be a Mahadevaha, Devanam Devaha. So according to the stage we are, right, every stage, in whatever stage we are, if we are animal and operating worse than an animal, even then we have a connection with Paramapurusha, then he is Pashupatihi, right? If we have progressed little bit, he is Vireshwaraha. If we have progressed further, then he is Mahadev. So what this essentially means is that in every stage we have a connection with Paramatma. There is no stage where we don't have connection with Paramatma, right? We have connection with Paramatma in every stage. We should not forget that. So instead of crying over what happened in the past, right, we have to always think about, we should be forward looking, we should think about how I can progress from today, from this minute, right? What happened yesterday is past. I'm not going to cry over the past, I'm not going to cry over spilt milk, right? From today onwards, I will make every effort to progress, right? When I say I make every effort to progress, not necessarily in only doing sadhana, but the first steps of Yoganishta Jivanam is the ahara, vyavahara, asanas, the daily nitya kriyas. In all of those I will get established and I will progress forward, right? When I'm making that effort to progress, then that is what is the Veera Bhava. We should all become Veeras. We should not just be stuck in that Pashu Bhava. We should progress, we should get the Veera Bhava, and from there we should get the Divya Bhava. And this is the potentiality that I was talking about. The unused potentiality is exactly this, right? We only use 2% of a potentiality. We 8% misuse, 90% we don't use. And this is what we mean of utilizing the potentialities. We have that potentiality to reach the infinite. We need to use that potentiality, and we can get the same potentiality that Paramatma has, and that requires that prayatna and the forward looking attitude, right? So having said that, I wanted to this is what I wanted to talk about today, and further we can actually go to our pravachan. Our pravachan is intuitional practice and its necessity. That is the pravachan we have been reading. So we said that every unit consciousness, every jivatma needs to be released from the bondage of prakriti to attain that supreme, right? And when the influence of prakriti is greater, then the consciousness is actually subdued, right? So then when the influence of prakriti is greater, then there is more ajnanam. Because of that ajnanam covers the consciousness. The consciousness gets completely covered, right? When the ajnanam, when the person gets when the influence of prakriti decreases, then he gets jnanam, he gets greater wisdom, and the reflection of consciousness becomes more clear, right? So only when the influence of prakriti is greater, then the person has this one, ignorance, right? Ajnanam. So what does the sadhana do? The sadhana actually helps us to reduce the influence of prakriti, and it makes the brahma jnanam shine, right? So the consciousness becomes clearly reflected. So sadhana is a constant struggle against this infinite prakriti, right? And we know that because Prakriti is chanchal, because of its gunas, it's always wavering and restless, and because our mind is also made of that Prakriti, so the mind is also, we can see restlessness in the mind. Therefore, we do experience difficulties, sangarsha in doing sadhana, right? We have to engage in that struggle. We have to do the alinganam of that struggle. We have to embrace that struggle, right? So when we embrace that struggle, what happens is that we do get victory, right? So we also saw that when a person engages in this struggle, engages in sadhana, he will also get lot of supernatural powers. He will get siddhis, right? This anima, lagima, mahima ityade, right? So the siddhis are there, right? He will get those siddhis, right? But a sadhaka who is a sincere sadhaka, whose goal is to attain that supreme, right? He will not give any attention to these siddhis, right? If a sadhaka starts using these siddhis, right, then essentially it means he's bringing back his individual existence, right? So we are trying, in the sadhana we are trying to merge our individual existence with Paramapurusha, but when we start utilizing the siddhis, that means we have lost track of the goal, lost track of the goal of attaining the supreme. Then such a sadhaka will definitely fall from the path. He will get adogatihi, right? So so that is why we have to understand what is the proper and correct use of these siddhis, right? So that is why a sadhaka will never give any importance to these siddhis, right? Because if a sadhaka starts utilizing these siddhis, then what it means is that the Prakriti has started to gain control. We are again coming into the bandhan of Prakriti, right? We are trying to get rid of the bandhan of the Prakriti. So in order to get rid of the bandhan of the Prakriti, we should not be giving any importance to these siddhis. No doubt the siddhis, attaining the siddhis indicates that the sadhaka has progressed spiritually, right? But a sadhaka should not, he should think about these siddhis as a tuchha, like a blade of grass, right? Not give any importance to the siddhis. Sadhaka will think these siddhis are like a blade of grass, very, very unimportant. And his goal is, if your goal is to reach Delhi, right? If there are side streets, then if you get tempted and say, oh, I want to go in the side street and see what is there, then you lose your track of going to Delhi, right? So your goal is to go attain Paramapurusha, and these siddhis are side tracks, right? Side streets. And if you start engaging in that, then you lose your goal, right? That is only adogatihi. Therefore, a sadhaka never uses his siddhis. Okay, so that is what we had seen in the last class. We can actually progress from there. Okay, Chandrasekhar Modi, do you want to take this?
Sure, Mahadev. People use the power that comes from sadhana in order to win the admiration of others. The exhibition of one's supernatural powers would make others extol, respect, or even worship one. Others would look upon one as a great devotee, sadhaka. This is the only reason behind the display of one's powers. A desire to command respect and devotion from others is only being entrapped by vanity, manaha, and pride, mada, of avidya maya. The use of power for such objects is the pursuit of avidya maya, and the pursuit of avidya maya leads to degradation. Hence, any use of supernatural power brings one under the control of avidya maya, which inevitably leads to a fall and to degradation. So this paragraph just reiterates what you had just said. So if you, because of the sadhana, gain this power, attain a power of some supernatural power, and that supernatural power then attracts other people who are enamored by the supernatural power, and then they start uh, worshipping you, or it's anywhere from basic respect to even all the way to the worship. And if one falls for that attraction, then the sadhaka is trapped by his vanity and pride, or both mana and mada, of avidya maya. Basically, it's avidya maya that entraps you to, as you get impressed or go after the respect other people show you, and thereby you lose control or lose sight of your ultimate goal, and ultimate goal of pursuing Paramatma, and instead you've follow the pursuit of avidya maya, which in turn leads to your downfall from the human goal. So any use of this supernatural power one has obtained by the sadhanas, um, one should still keep that perspective and stay focused and not fall under the control of avidya maya. Essentially, that's what the paragraph is.
Nicely said, Maurya. Nicely said. Yeah, so generally speaking, those involved in Pashu Dharma, or in those in whom the light of Manava Dharma has not awakened, they spend their lives glorifying and trying to glorify in front of others that small I, right? They think that that this is actually the main goal of their life, the small I, right? That materialistic lifestyle, getting more and more money, name, fame, so many different materialistic goals which are ultimately in service of that small I feeling. So people, that's why people realize that I am great, right? That small I that at birth, that was named by all different names that we have, like Rama, Shyama, Leela, Sita, all those, right? Whoever, everybody has a name. That name is the name of that small I, and people spend their lives glorifying that very I. But for a sadhaka, that small I becomes the obstacle and not the goal, right? Because they have this realization that they have the big I within them, right? That aham brahma asmi, that Brahma within, that infinite entity within, is really their goal of life and not the small I. So when they realize that, then what was actually a shiny thing in the past, that small I, it's no longer shiny, right? They lose interest, they got something better, and so they start chasing and running after that big I, that great consciousness, right? So until somebody reaches a stage, to a stage of their progress, however, there is a danger of degeneration, right? If somebody gets access to these powers, right, and opens the door to that, then it takes a turn from the main path, and what they do, start accessing those siddhis. And when you access the siddhis, then there is in service of your small I, right? That very I, small I, which was an obstacle in realizing the big I, now you start engaging in that, right? So those who realize that the big I is their goal, they lose all the interest in the small I, right? So if that interest in that big I is not fully developed, is not well established, then they lose sight of it and may get access to the occult powers, right? If they do that, then they just entered into the darkness of glorifying their small I. It's actually worse. So those people who are engaged in material acquisition cannot degenerate themselves as quickly as these people who are accessing their siddhis, right? So this is like lightning. When they access the siddhis, it's like lightning. They degenerate themselves very quickly. They think themselves as guru, and they degenerate themselves, and they'll be turning themselves into a stone for the next life. So it's very, very dangerous. So it is only dangerous, uh, right, to the extent that somebody doesn't have love for that supreme entity, for that infinite entity, right? So when that attraction for that infinite entity is well established in a sadhaka, right, then they will not easily fall, right? Only somebody who doesn't have the deep love for that supreme entity, there is a danger, right? So they can get entrapped, they can get fascinated by these occult powers, right? When they get fascinated by these occult powers, the siddhis, and they start using it, then it is nothing but glorification of their small eye, right? It's like hollow balloons just getting bloated up, right? It's like a cancer, it's like a poison to that existence, right? But the person, for a person who is intoxicated by his small eye, for such a person the siddhis will seem like a beautiful thing. But for a sadhaka who is well established, then he will not pay any attention to these siddhis. Okay, we'll move on. I think this is clear. Bhagini, you want to take the next one?
Bhagini. Many consider it proper to use the power begotten of sadhana to alleviate suffering, for instance, to provide relief from a serious disease. There is hardly any logic behind it. Everyone has to bear the consequences of their actions, and disease, suffering, or calamities are only different forms of suffering those consequences. Bhagavan is benevolent, and it is according to his laws that one has to suffer the consequences of one's actions. It is through this suffering that one has to take a lesson to abstain from evil. That is the purpose behind God's making one suffer the consequences. Interference in this divine law with the help of supernatural powers acquired through sadhana is not benevolence. The reaction to one's actions, karma pala, will have to be experienced, and it is not within the authority of even the greatest of devotees or sadhakas to stop this. They may at best be able to postpone the suffering, but the performer of the actions will have to suffer the remaining consequences and may have to seek rebirth for this. As a punishment, suffering from a serious disease may awaken the desire for sadhana, intuitional practice, to achieve emancipation. But many straying and ignorant disciples deprive people of the opportunity of arousing this awakening by relieving them of their suffering with the help of their sadhana begotten supernatural powers. They in fact do greater disservice than service to the sufferer. So this paragraph essentially says that achieving the powers through sadhana is not going to help anyone to make other person free from their suffering. For example, if a person is suffering from a disease, the person who has achieved his sadhana cannot use his powers to elevate that disease, because the person who is suffering from the disease has to bear the consequences of his karma pala, and so that thing can be done to stop that consequences. So the probably he can postpone his the suffering, but he cannot fully stop the suffering. So what happens is, the person who is the sufferer gets the suffering gets postponed, but he has to take a rebirth. The person instead the person can help the second person who is suffering to come out of his, to do some sadhana and get his suffering free. But most of them don't do it. The disciples of many of the sadhus, they only help help people to relieve themselves from the suffering, and they don't allow them to move into the path of emancipation or doing sadhana. So this is going, the person who is only moving towards this, the glorifying the small I, do nothing but only help other people suffer, and they don't make use of this one to move towards Paramatma.
Nice, nicely said, Bhagni. So that is the point. I think the point is very clear. So there are two things over here. So Paramapurusha has created this universe, and he has created a certain system by which the universe works, right? And the practice of spirituality is not intended as a tool for breaking or interfering with the system, right? The purpose of doing sadhana, purpose of following yogic life is to merge into the infinite and not to start fooling around with trying to interfere with the laws, the karya karana bhava, and the laws of prakriti. So that is not the point, right? So anybody who forgets what the point of human life is and starts interfering with that, right, they're not going to help anything. Rather, it will be quite harmful, right? It will be harmful to themselves first and foremost, right? And it is harmful to others as well, right? They're stopping the progress of other people. So the karya karana bhavas and the laws of the prakriti, they all have to be respected, and a person who is truly a sadhaka, he will not have any interest to interfere with those things, right? It is nothing to do with the goal of human life, right? So the 2 points over here is, one, that Paramapurusha, the infinite consciousness, has created this universe with kalyana, he's a kalyanakari, right? Kalyana janak. With that goal in mind, Paramapurusha has created this universe. So the systems, rules according to which everything works in this universe, right, in that it may look like as if people are getting harmed or the people are undergoing suffering, but ultimately in the highest bird's eye perspective, everybody is getting benefited from everything that is happening, right? Everybody is getting benefited from everything that happens, is what we need to understand. So sometimes people say, oh, why is Paramapurusha so cruel? Why is Paramatma so cruel? Why is he allowing this to happen, that to happen? But we are looking at it from a very narrow lens. Everything that is happening in this universe is happening according to his own rules, right? And when we look at from the high level, from the bird's eye perspective, we understand that he is a kalyana janak, he is a kalyanakari. Everybody is getting benefited in this. This is the divine design of the universe. No doubt people are undergoing suffering, but ultimately it is for the best. Everything's for the best. If somebody understands that Paramapurusha is all-knowing and everything that he does is with the intention of kalyana, then it is a natural outcome of these 2 points. He's not only all-knowing and all-powerful, sarva shaktiman, sarvagnya, sarva kalyana janak. So all of these things, right, these things come together to mean that ultimately everything happens in this universe is for the welfare. Anything that happens in this universe is for the welfare of every jiva, right? So that is one point. Everything that is happening is for the welfare of the jivas. And second is, nobody should interfere with the system, right? So nobody should be interfering with the system, with the laws of prakriti, using occult powers, even if it is with the goal of alleviating suffering, right? It's not going to help anybody, right? Because when you try to alleviate the suffering of somebody with your siddhis, then you're going against the system. And right, one should not use occult powers even for alleviating suffering, for curing diseases and such things, right? And this point must never be used as a justification for saying that therefore we should not help people. No, that is not right, right? So we have to do seva. We have to help people. If they are suffering, we have to help them, not by using the siddhis, but in any other way that we can, right? We can physically help them, we can do service to them, right? So we can do all of that, but we cannot use the siddhis, right? So we should not misuse the siddhis even for helping others or even alleviating suffering. but that does not mean that we cannot give medicine to the sick and we cannot give food to the hungry. It does not mean that. We have to follow the laws of prakriti, and within that framework we have to help people. So that is what is jagat hit, right? So our goal is not to exploit people, our goal is to help them, not by using occult power. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Mode, you want to take it?
The use of sadhana begotten power has to be regarded as a blasphemy. For is it not challenging the supremacy of God by neutralizing the effectiveness of the laws of His nature with the help of supernatural powers? One may cross a river by walking on water, may walk through raging fire, or may even perform the miracle of curing one of an incurable disease. One would invariably be using one's powers to nullify the nature, dharma, of water and fire and to interfere with the law of prakriti, which makes one suffer reactions of all one's actions. Suffer reactions of all one's actions. Anyone walking on water in a river must be drowned. Fire has the property of burning whatever may come in its contact. Similarly, one has to bear the consequences of one's actions. To evade these effects is to challenge the authority of God. It's not merely challenging, but demolishing the very constitution of creation and its laws. There could be no greater blasphemy. So in this paragraph, it just is trying to point out that if somebody who's gotten the power, the supernatural power, or the siddhis, if they use that to to change what's the natural law, then is blasphemy. It's just not the right thing to do. It's really going against the law of nature. So like it's challenging the the supremacy of God, or the challenging the authority of God, or challenging the nature. It's showing examples, someone with their power that they've gotten from sadhana can walk on water, or can go through burning fire, or cure an incurable disease that someone's suffering. But all these are going against natural laws, like the natural law or the property of water. The dharma of water is to, let people drown in it, if that's what this thing is. Or the dharma of fire is to burn whatever is going through that fire. Or if someone's suffering, they're really paying for the karmapala, their actions, and that's the law of Prakriti's law, or the nature's law. And if one uses their superpower that they were obtained by doing sadhana, then they're just essentially misusing their power, or they're using their power to go against that law of nature, and they're challenging nature, they're challenging the authority of God. And so therefore, in this paragraph is pointing out that's blasphemy. There could be no greater blasphemy than that. So you should never, it's trying to reiterate, one should never do that. And that.
Yeah, nicely said, Modi. That is the point over here. So it's essentially going further on the same theme, taking further one step, expressing how serious matter it is, right? So in the previous paragraph, we talked about the karma and karmapala and how it interferes with that when we use the siddhis. And now it's going further to say that, right, that this is not only interfering with the chain reaction of karya karana bhava in an individual's life, but also the entire, it interferes with the fabric of the entire creation, right? So the ramifications are quite dramatic, and they have a very strong impact against the design of the universe, right? So there is a certain design of the universe, and a goal of a sadhaka must never be to interfere with that, right? It results in degeneration of the mind, right? And it is not only harmful to yourself, but it is also harmful with the other person with whom you are interacting. The dharma of various entities have to be respected. There is a there is a design for every entity, right? Everything like fire, water, disease, everything. Somebody has an incurable disease, so that doesn't mean that we have to cure the disease, we have to cure the disease with siddhis, right? But we can help to cure the disease in other ways according to the laws of prakriti, right? So that is what this paragraph is actually talking about, how serious of a matter this is. So we'll actually go to the last paragraph. Bhagini.
Bhagini. Every action will have a reaction, and that has to be experienced. Use of supernatural powers is also an action. No. 1 minute. Use of supernatural powers is also an action. It is not only an action but a blasphemous action, an evil deed. One is bound to suffer the consequences of such an action, and as long as one has not exhausted the experience of all the potential reactions, samskara, one cannot obtain freedom from the bondage of prakriti. Hence, the use of supernatural powers bestowed by intuitional practice is not justified under any circumstances. It invariably leads to the downfall and degradation, and so it is essential to refrain from the temptation of using such powers. So we know that every action has a reaction, and this has to be experienced. So now, using of this supernatural powers is also an action. So we have to face the reaction. So if a person uses it for an action of saving a person who is suffering, thereby interfering into the action, the karma pala of the suffering person, first thing he interferes into the karma pala of the second person, and also he is going against the law of nature, and so he will have to face the reaction. The person who is attained and is using his supernatural powers also has to face the reaction or the consequences of what he used for a different deed. Instead of moving towards the supernatural, instead of going towards Paramatma, if he is using it for some different methods, then he will have to face the consequence, and it will lead to his downfall and degradation. So instead, it is essential to refrain from that temptation, from the using of the supernatural powers, and use our ultimate goal to reach the Paramatma.
Yes, very nicely said. So when a sadhaka engages in using supernatural powers, then that itself becomes a karma. It becomes a kriya, and that is definitely going to have a pratikriya, right? That action is going to have a reaction. So one can never attempt to go against the chain of the this one, action and reaction, by using supernatural powers. When they do that, then one is actually chopping themselves, right? By doing actions, we are going to have reactions, and that will delay our progress in moving from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, right? So in every way it is negative. There is nothing positive about it. The person who gets that power, they get blinded, right? When they get the siddhis, they become blinded by it, and that is why we say that it is like a razor's edge, right? For such a person, for such a sadhaka, the path is very dangerous, right? One can degenerate oneself at any time, right? So only a person who is not able to cultivate the bhakti for prema for parama purusha, only such a person, there is a chance of falling. If he is a dry bhakta, not having that love for that entity, infinite entity, then for such a person that there is this fear of falling off. But somebody who is having this ragatmika bhakti for Paramatma, that complete devotion for the supreme entity, then that strength of that love and attraction for the supreme entity will help him to cross this hurdle, right? Will actually show him the right path, right? And so only one who doesn't have this bhakti bhava, right? So then for such a person, right, he will be attracted to this these supernatural powers, and that means his attraction towards the infinite is very weak. That is, they had a contamination, ashuddhi in their mind, right? That means their mind was not fully developed by following the yogic life sufficiently, due to because of lacking that bhakti bhava. They got confused as to what their goal in life is, right? So when they got the occult powers, they become confused, and they're unable to develop that attraction for the infinite, and they fall, right? But for a true sadhaka who has deep love for that infinite entity, bhakti bhava, prema, right, not wanting anything in return, then for such a person, these cannot do anything, right? He will treat these like tucha, like a blade of grass, right? So that is what it is. So we'll take one more paragraph more there.
Emancipation can be achieved by intuitional practice, sadhana, and so there must be a special technique for it. This can only be taught by one who knows the technique. It is therefore necessary for learning intuitional practice to find a teacher who knows the technique. Does it then mean that yeah, a preceptor, guru, is absolutely necessary for learning intuitional practice and obtaining emancipation, or can one learn it oneself? A man in prison with his hands and feet shackled will never be able to set himself free in spite of his best efforts, unless someone else opens the prison gates and removes his shackles. Similarly, people have been shackled by Prakriti and imprisoned in this wide prison, the world. It would never be possible for them to become free without the help of another person. So in here, it's trying to talk about, in this paragraph, that if someone, which is the human goal, if wants to achieve emancipation through sadhana, that they should, you know, use this, you know, special technique of of you know sadhana, achieving the sadhana, or and this sadhana can only be taught by somebody who knows the technique. And it's so one questions, do they have to go to a teacher who knows this technique? Can they learn by themselves? Absolutely, without going to any teacher. The paragraph answers that no, this would be like a prisoner who's all shackled in a prison, trying to get out of the prison by their own abilities, which won't be possible because they're all shackled and locked up. They need someone to remove the shackles and open the prison gate. And similar to that one, the humans are locked up in this world, in this Maya world, which is a prison. And in order to get out of this prison, then they need a guru, a preceptor, to guide them with the proper technique for the sadhana that would enable them to reach, to attain emancipation. So it's reiterating that one cannot do it by themselves. They need a guru. They need someone who knows that technique, who's practiced that technique, and learn sadhana from a known preceptor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, nicely said, Maurya. That is the idea. So the previous section we talked about supernatural powers, and in this section we are talking about how a person who understood that he doesn't want to lead the animal life any longer, wants to lead the human life, and wanting to know what is the way, right? So we talked a lot about the sadhana angas that one comes to learn, right? That taking sattvic food, right? Practicing asanas, nirjala upasas, all of nirjala upasa and all of that, right? Even in sadhana angas we need proper guidance, right? And when we get to the crux of human life, which is sadhana, it is particularly very very important that we learn the technique from somebody who is not entrapped in prakriti. Somebody who is themselves in prakriti means that then they cannot be the guru for us. Brahmaiva guruhu na aparaha, right? So there are all kinds of people in this world who claim to be gurus and spiritual teachers, right? But these people are themselves students in this universe, just like the rest of the jivas, right? We are all students who come here to learn something, but those who themselves are not realized cannot provide the guideline and the path for others to get liberation, because they themselves have are bound, right? So that is the point. A man in prison with his hands and feet tied, right, shackled, he will never be able to get himself free, right? So without getting a person, without getting proper guidance from somebody else, or by going to somebody else, uh, right? So if somebody else who is already imprisoned and you're also imprisoned, how can you get freed from that prison if the other person to whom you're seeking for help is also imprisoned, right? In neither of those scenarios the person can get proper guidance. So right, so they're not by looking at the internet or reading a book or going to so-called teacher, right? What we're trying to say here is that brahmaiva guruhu ekah na aparaha. Brahma is the only guru. No one else can be a guru except Brahma, right? Because only that Brahma is not imprisoned. Everything else in this universe is imprisoned. So who are they going to teach if you are already bound? And what are you going to teach, right? So only a Brahma, right, can be the guru. All the other people are are in this chakra of janma marana, right? And they just claim themselves to be guru. They claim themselves to be a master, right? So but what the point is that they are also students, so they are not in a position of teaching, right? They are in a position of learning. So such people cannot give you the proper technique, right? So the central point over here is that we need to get proper guidance. One has to learn from an entity who is not themselves imprisoned, and that is Brahma himself, right? Brahma eva guru. So when you have that intense desire for mumuksha muktum ichha, right, then Brahma himself will manifest before you in a particular form to give you that guidance, right? So he himself is the guru. All you need to have that intense desire for mukti moksha, right? Your inner eyes should have opened, then he himself will manifest before you. Okay, so Bhagini, do you want to take the small paragraph and we'll conclude?
One minute. Besides this, it is not possible for anyone to learn an art all by themselves. One must have someone who can teach them or whom they can initiate. Such a person from whom one can learn an
imitate
art.
imitate
One minute. Or whom they can imitate. Such a person from whom one can learn an art is a preceptor. Institutional practice, sadhana, is also an art and has to be learned from a preceptor. Hence, emancipation is not possible without a preceptor. A guru is always a prime necessity for obtaining emancipation. So, this
Bhagini, it is sorry, it is the intuitional practice. Intuition is that bodhi jnanam.
Okay. Intuitional practice is also an art and can be learned from a preceptor. So this paragraph essentially gives an idea that we must have a guru, and it emphasizes that a guru is necessary to know about the how to emancipate ourselves and how to do the sadhana in proper way and how to use the sadhana to move towards Paramatma. Without the guru, one cannot learn what to do, how to do sadhana, or how to emancipate himself from the to emancipate himself from this jivan to move towards the supreme entity, that is the Paramatma. So this paragraph finally emphasizes the need for a guru, and that guru who has the full path, or who can initiate the person to emancipate himself. Such a guru is necessary for one person to emancipate from this towards and move towards Paramatma.
Yeah, Bhagini, nicely said. So we need to understand what is the meaning of guru. Guru means an entity who has the power to remove darkness from others' minds. Gu means darkness, Ru means removal of the darkness. So the entity who has such a power has to be somebody who themselves is not in the dark, right? And only such an entity can be called as a guru. And then such an entity is indispensable for human being to proceed forward, right? So we cannot just create the path ourselves, right? We ourselves are in the dark, and we need somebody who is not in the dark to show us the path to get out. And once having learned that, then it's guaranteed that the person who follows the true path of manava dharma will get emancipated, right? So this is inherent in the design and the nature of the human beings, that they have the ability, once they get the proper teachings, to get emancipation. So it's not limited. So right, anybody who is a member of the manava jati, right, has the ability to follow the path of dharma and get mukti or moksha. So in order to follow the path of dharma, one has to get proper guidelines, one has to get the teachings from somebody who is not themselves imprisoned, and that entity is guru. So right, we are getting more complete picture about how the yogic life looks, right? So it's a very beautiful experience, right? So this whole yogic life experience has a very deeply positive effect on every human being. So we should engage more and more in this yogic life with every passing day, and encourage others also to do the same, right? Thereby we will be creating a positive environment, a manav samaj, in which everybody will get motivation to move in the proper direction. So even those people whose inner eyes have not opened, are not going to open in this life, they will also get some positive benefit of being in the satsang, right, of those who are getting influenced positively, right? So it's very important that we need to have a proper guru to proceed forward. And just like any other art, learning sadhana is an art, and we need to learn it from somebody from a preceptor who is a guru, and imitate them, right? Imitate them and proceed forward. So we cannot just try to do sadhana. We cannot just look, people say I do meditation, and they look at internet, and people say hold your hands like this, do this, that, right? It's not like we don't know, like we have so many so-called gurus. We don't know, how much they are bound by prakriti, whether they are liberated or not. We don't know any of that, right? So how do we learn from any person, right? So it's very important that you get proper guidance and proper direction from a person who is not in the dark. So that is what this paragraph is talking. So we will actually stop over here. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, I think it's clear. So we'll actually conclude the session over here. धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.
धन्यवादः भगिनी.
धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.
नमस्कारः.